So greetings and aloha, what's going on? It's Mike's from LiveMyAssOff.com, and as part of Living My Ass Off today, because of the relaxing of the closures, I thought, oh great, that means I can go to Lumpini Park, my favorite park in town. And I can go get some exercise inside the park. Well, as you saw, as well as you probably can see over my shoulder, at least this entrance down here near Saladang and Rama 4 is closed. So I am going to see where I can find an entrance because I can understand why they would only have one. I did read that, you know, wherever you enter, right, they're gonna like take your temperature and potentially give you hand sanitizer, I guess, if you're going to use your hands on anything in a park, but I don't know if that's going to occur. And of course I need to wear a mask, and I've got a mask on, as you can see. And Daniel, thank you very much for the new mask. my old pink one wasn't doing it, I don't think. Now, here's what's unfortunate. Because I'm not seeing, like, even if I get to enter over there, right there, in the distance there, all those gates are closed. So, and what's funny is that, like, you know, they just bought these like brand new gates. Like they didn't even like take the stuff off on some of them. It's kind of interesting. So down here, there's kind of, all right, well, I tell you what, looks like I can walk down this path. I mean, I was able to get my, you know, favorite sort of coffee, right? Which, if you've been to Thailand or you've been to the, you know, you've been to like major street, well, not even major streets, they have them on side roads. You know, the coffee they make here, right? A lot of times it's like been brewing for the last, well, basically since the Vietnam War. And it's in this big sock, and it tastes epic. In order to be able to stomach it, they mix it with an enormous amount of sweetened condensed milk and sugar and cream. Now, there are officers down here, and what I'm hoping is that they're gonna like take my temperature and bam, I'm gonna be able to go into the park. But I fear that's not happening, so all right, let's see if anything like that, even close to that, can happen here. Hello, cop. Can go in? No? Ah, yes? Oh, good, thank you. All right, so that's awesome. So it looks like there's an entrance. Oh yeah, and there's a guy in there riding his bike. And that's cool. Yeah, those officers were, I don't know if I got that in the camera. I'm basically just kind of like walking with my camera in my hand as if I'm not videoing. Because I can, I guess, appreciate, you know, how they might be like, look, dude, don't take our picture. We're like law enforcement. I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I don't like to cause trouble. But this looks like a total entrance down here. I am so excited. And holding this camera as I am in my left hand and not out in front of me, like looking into it. This is the equivalent of like walking down the sidewalk before YouTube was a thing. And you'd just be basically talking to yourself. Like before cell phones had the, you know, hands-free earpiece or anything like that. Like imagine it's 1986 and I'm like walking down the sidewalk holding a bag full of iced coffee, and I'm basically talking to any of the pigeons that will listen to me. That's what we got going on right now. So luckily, this is a disease of upper respiratory and not of the mind, because one could argue that I will be judged as if I have a serious mental deficiency at this point. So, okay, so this is the entrance, and I already got my, hey, those are nice bikes. I already got my, okay, cool. So that's what I was expecting. I could have brought my bike. I should have gotten a bike. Sorry, Kap.
Oh, relax.
Relax.
Yeah.
Okay. What temp? Oh my goodness, because I'm walking. So I'm 37.8. So I gotta chill out. All right, cool. Oh, this will help. Whoop. So I was 37.8 degrees, but the good news is that I have my iced coffee. So with any luck, I will. I always wondered about that. I mean, we're outdoors, and it's like, you know, it's hot, right? So I should be like really hot. But anyway, so this will help me cool down. So as I was suspecting, and thank God, thank you, Buddha, my temperature is the same that it's always been, which is 36.3, 36.4. But I always wondered about that because I would go outside, and the only way I can get back in my condo, right, is they measure your temperature, which makes sense. And I've always thought, just like walk to the store, and I'm walking back, and I'm sweating, right, because like it's Thailand. I mean, it's 104 out, right? I mean, it's like I'm going to be I'm definitely going to be hot. And sure enough, finally that sort of scenario occurred. But they have seats there purposely for it, and the gentleman that was there with his two daughters, they all sat down on the sidewalk, and I guess we waited, I don't know. I should have timed it. I should have just let the camera roll, as they say. But anyway, the result was what I expected, which is basically after sitting down for, I don't know, 3-4 minutes, my body temperature is normal. Now, there's a chance that I'm like walking the wrong way, which is weird because in Thailand I'm used to like walking on the left, you know, driving on the left, but it's almost like I'm walking against traffic right now. So maybe what I'll do is I will turn around and walk the other way, simply because that's basically the way everyone else is going. So I'm going like the wrong way, so I'll go the right way, even though this guy on his bike is coming this way. But it seems like the majority of the people are walking this way and riding their bikes this way. So I prefer to do more of that. Now it's really nice here, but what's interesting is not only are there like less people, and you can't, here, hold on. The benches over there, right? They have like, you know, ropes on them, and you're not supposed to sit down, and you're not supposed to gather with other people, right? So I get that. And what was funny is what I hope I didn't do is just like ignore that officer guy over there. Because he did say something as I walked away, but I thought he was just like, yeah, have a good time kind of thing. He was probably like, no, walk this way. Walk in this direction. So I haven't done that, but the other thing is like, I mean, so the paddles aren't turning. I mean, it's, you know, look, it's just open. You know, it's not like 100%. Nothing's 100%, but at least I'm here getting some exercise. Of course, by now my temperature, I'm sure, is well above 37 or so degrees. But oh, this is so welcomed. I love this park. As I've said, I'm very pleased with the way Thailand is responding to this. But to be fair, I'm basically over here on vacation. And the idea of, well, you know, I mean, legally I can't work, right? So, I mean, even if I wanted to. But the idea in my mind of, oh yeah, as long as I generate X amount of dollars in revenue, I can live over here. And it wasn't that at all. It was more like, unless I have my act together, to be able to live over here for 10 years straight, then I'm not coming. And as I anticipated, after being over here about 3 months or so, I got a pretty good handle on what life is going to cost me in this part of the world. And it's about a third of what San Diego cost me. And the difference of course, or maybe not of course, maybe you don't know this, but the initial difference is the cost of lodging. The condo that I have here and the area that I have here, if you were to sort of transpose that into San Diego, it would likely be just under $2,000 a month. And I'm paying under $400 a month. That's just for my place to live. Electricity here is probably what I would pay back home. In fact, it's probably a little bit cheaper back home per kilowatt hour. But the AC unit that I have in the house, it's more common to have a much larger unit in the States. So, now that guy's not wearing a mask, and doesn't look like they're gonna enforce that, which is a little disappointing, actually. Because whether you agree with this or not, my belief is that I have some degree of responsibility, and this is just me, as a farang, as a representative of someone who comes from the United States, to basically be the best example of me globally as I possibly can. I also believe that I have a responsibility to act in a way such that my lifestyle, I'm an example, I'd like to think, of a good lifestyle. And by that I mean someone who doesn't drink alcohol, someone who's clean and sober. I also like to think that I have a responsibility to behave the way I do based on the fact that I have a master's in leadership, Master of Science in Executive Leadership. Because if I were to take all the teachings of, what it takes to be the perfect leader, right? I mean, that's what you learn in school. You learn the ideal things. The first time you learn anything about physics, and the first time you do any of the math that applies to the solution of physics, you always, every calculation, like for the first 2 years of physics, for the most part, the calculations are all done with no friction. But I think we can all agree that if there were actually no friction in the world, I mean, at least they do take, into account the fact that there's gravity, and you add that in. But if there were no friction, then just my ability to propel my feet forward on this hard surface wouldn't exist. And so, but the point is that you learn it in the ideal conditions, and then you ideally, no pun intended, take what you've learned and then you apply these other forces, if you will. So in the case of physics, then you apply friction, and you add that into the equation, and then you come up with the real way that a ball will fall 32 feet per second, right? And anyway, the point is that I've learned, and I've been presented with examples of, and what I agree with to be behaviors that show that you're being a good leader, the way I believe it should be done. And I tend to believe some of the discussion around the fact that, you take the org chart, right? And what you've probably heard this too, is you turn it upside down. Meaning that if it's a triangle, and, the guy in charge, the girl in charge, the CEO, is at the top, well, you invert that. And effectively, the CEO is now at the bottom. The leaders are at the bottom. And the leaders, their responsibility is to work for the people that are traditionally lower on the org chart. And as I learned, and as I believed, and as I saw the infinitely better results of being a manager, of being a director, of being a president, a CEO, all those roles. If I get up in the morning and say, as a leader, what is my responsibility to my guys, my gals? And by guys, I mean, men and women, right? Because as far as I saw it, I had no right, really, to be a manager unless I was the most important thing about my job is to make sure that the people who, reported to me on the org chart, if you will, had 110% of the resources they needed to be wildly successful. One of the things that I really like about WD-40 is that the way, because you know how every organization will do reviews, right? Some annual, some quarterly, some monthly, whatever. Usually the annual review is that infamous behavior that is dreaded by managers as well as the staff. And sometimes what happens is, as a manager, you run into a scenario where someone who basically reports to you on the org chart, who you manage, and it's your responsibility to cultivate them and set healthy boundaries and make sure that they do their work, motivate them to bring their brain to work to make results happen based on the goals of the organization, okay? And a lot of times, not a lot of times, actually it's quite rare, it's just that it's so disappointing that you'll run into a scenario where someone who basically works for you is either not doing their job, sometimes intentionally. They're not being part of the team. They're removing energy from the team's direction of success. And, so a lot of times, sometimes, very few times, gratefully at least for me, is the manager will need to put a improvement plan in place, right? Again, the manager's responsibility to provide 110% of the resources necessary for that person to be wildly successful. And the reason I really like the culture at WD-40 is that when the manager rates that person, however they do it, 1 through 5, A through F, whatever rating system they use, and they rate them as, something that's not an A, right? Well, then that manager's manager is questioned and said, well, why is this person underperforming? And the appropriate answer at WD-40 is not, something to the effect of, oh, that person is just lame. So when the manager sort of judges one of their employees as being ineffective, well then, the manager's manager says, hey, what's wrong with you? What are you doing incorrectly? So it's nice, in my opinion. I like cultures like that. Again, you can lead a horse to water, right? In other words, here's what I do when I hire someone. I hire a smart person who's normal, who either shows up awesome or has a high likelihood of being awesome. Yeah, but Mike, what about their technical skill sets? What about their certifications? What about their pedigree? What about their previous job performance? That sort of thing. Yeah, that's interesting. Now, to be fair, I've never been in the scenario where I've worked for a company that is so large that by the time the small subset of resumes got to my desk, it had already been filtered basically by Google based on keywords. So if the person didn't have the word Microsoft or Adobe or whatever on their resume, then it didn't even make it to the hiring manager, right? So I've never been in that scenario. But Saudi cop. I have been in a scenario where there has been the infamous pile of resumes on my desk. And I've had to go through every single one of them. And I do go through every single one of them. And, you know, I will tell you that I have a little bit of a bias based on the fact that there is a huge shortage of females in IT. That when I see a resume from a female, I think to myself, boy, I hope she has the brains, and I hope she has some awesome. And gratefully, two of the women that were on our team, on the systems team, specifically one who I basically refer to as my sister, because she literally became part of the family and is a leader. She was the president of her sorority, so, and trust me, that didn't mean that she just like chose the dresses for the girls or like, you know, chose the DJ and made the cookies better. She was a leader. And one could argue that being a leader of a sorority basically means you're herding cats. So her name was Colette, and she's amazing. And she occasionally watches my videos, so I don't think she would be very surprised if she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe Mike said I was amazing." That's basically the expectation, the minimal expectation I have of her. And luckily she is amazing. So, but what I would do is, you know, trust me, I can't put in a job description, needs to be wicked smart and needs to be awesome. But if you're someone who can't just like get up in the morning, and whether you're desperate for a job or you've already got a full-time job that pays you handsomely, I hope that you can get up in the morning, go to the nearest mirror, look in there and say, I'm smart and I'm awesome. And if you can't do that, well, it's not a requirement, okay, for your happiness. But the way I look at it as a leader is that if you have the ability to at least say, I want to be smart and I want to be awesome, well then as a leader, it is my responsibility to give you 110% of all the resources you need to meet that goal. And so anyway, that's my theory on leadership. A little bit of an example of how I led, how I continue to lead in organizations. And it is something that I believe I have a responsibility to sort of uphold. And one could argue that regardless of the topic, it's simply me saying that I believe that my definition of integrity is pretty simply defined as that guy walks his talk. His behaviors match his speech. I'm not going to steal these potato chips from 7-Eleven means I don't walk into a 7-Eleven and leave with potato chips I didn't pay for, right? So that's obviously a very remedial example, but I hope you get it. I think you get it. I assume you get it. How's that? Another entrance over there, and exit, of course. But you know, I've said this before, I said this on another live stream, is that, you know, this outdoor exercise thing absolutely is one of the things that keeps me sane. You know, I was just about to say, and of course, I'm getting my vitamin D. Okay, here is the biggest learning. If you take away any sort of learning from any of my discussions, I want you to make sure that you know and that you provide this information to other people that potentially do not know that vitamin D is absolutely produced from the body, from the cholesterol, when you are exposed to the sun. Okay? The sun doesn't have magic vitamin D in its photons. There is no infrared that also transports vitamin D that is then rubbed on your body like a suntan lotion. Okay? So while everybody knows that the Earth revolves around the sun, and we still say the sun is coming up, when of course, yes, relative to the Earth, but sort of relative to space, the world is spinning, is the more accurate thing. But nonetheless, we say the sun is coming up, the sun is going down, and everyone sort of agrees, yeah, I know what that means. But what I fear, I don't fear this. My concern is there are people that believe that the sun provides us with vitamin D, much like it provides us with heat and light. And again, let's be clear. Vitamin D is produced inside the body when the body is exposed to sunlight. So, hopefully, that will allow you to be a little bit more educated, let's say. Because trust me, when I first heard people saying, oh yeah, I gotta go outside and get some vitamin D, many years ago, even before there was Google, I thought to myself, okay, so like I get this whole sun thing. Like it's the absolutely most perfectly designed nuclear reactor, okay? There is no better one literally in the galaxy than the sun at providing infrared and photons and ultraviolet and all that, the whole spectrum. But heat and light, right? And of course the whole gravity thing, that helps too. But you know, I did some research because I was like, wait a minute. And honestly, I remember doing this when I was a kid in, I want to say, I was able to go to the public library, but I wasn't able to drive there. So, and it's not like I was unable to go to the public library. I've always been able to go to the public library in my town, but this was one of those deals where it was like, I either rode my bike or I went with my buddies or something like that. So, I was there and I was like, you know what, I'm going to find out about this vitamin D thing. Like how much, what is it for? Why do people talk about it? What do the scientists believe is the positive result of this vitamin D stuff that you're talking about? And how the heck does the sun, of all the vitamins out there, like why don't I get vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C? So anyway, so I researched it, and at least my belief, and what I believe, and you can verify this if you'd like, is that there's no vitamin D that is coming from the sun. Vitamin D is produced from inside the body when the sun and being outdoors reaches your body. So, I'm up producing some vitamin D. So I would submit that the more appropriate statement is, I'm going to go out and produce some vitamin D. And I may even share it with all of you guys. How's that? Meaning, I'll take my good mood, and if you can't get outdoors right now, well, have I got some good mood energy for you. Now, a lot of this walk and talk is, well, it's for a couple reasons. One, it's so you can potentially see the inside of Lumpini Park. I did have a guy who made a comment about one of my videos when I was in Lumpini Park and said it was a little bit run down when I was there. Is it still that way? And, you know, again, that's all relative, right? Because I can tell you that the way that I label this, coming from Southern California, i.e. the desert, is that, oh my God, it is so green here. But if you grew up in a rainforest, you might be like, oh, Mike, that's nothing. And if you grew up in the Sudan, you might be like, desert? What are you talking about? San Diego has irrigation. So anyway, I'm over here to share with you video of me walking around so you can basically make your own determination. Now again, the camera doesn't do it justice, is absolutely an appropriate thing, because the camera is a multi-year-old Huawei phone that actually is unable to even recognize the SIM inside, so it is effectively a very small tablet. It works on Wi-Fi, the camera works, the microphones work, the display works. The only thing I can't do is basically get data from the cellular network. I can only get it from a Wi-Fi network, so that's why I keep it around. And obviously, if you know anything about phones and using them for filming, the batteries, of course, have finite life. They deplete faster when you're using them to record video. So effectively, I just use this phone and I record video on it till the battery dies. Then I switch to my next phone. So, but as you might guess, I don't start out with a script. This stuff just sort of comes to me, and your interest in it is probably pretty varied. I'm sure there are some people that agree and or like what I'm saying or talking about. There may be some other people that are like, you know, Mike, we would much rather see you on a roller coaster screaming than walking through a park with an awesome tree that I absolutely knew if Gracie was here, we would be taking pictures of those, and she would be taking selfies that would look awesome, that would make me smile. Maybe not smile as much as this guy, but indeed, I'd be smiling. You know what I like is unmanicured grass. I don't particularly like the weeds that grow through, you know, bricks, but I really like full grass like that. I don't know. It doesn't look messy to me. Now, obviously, if you have an edger and that sort of thing, then yeah, I get it. That maybe looks a little nicer. And I'm not saying that that does not look nice over there, because obviously it's cut. But I like the non-cut grass. Now, there's another thing that I did yesterday, 2 days ago, that I'm likely to do today, because I have some pretty decent sneakers on, and I do need to get new sneakers, and I do need to get new custom insoles. I get these custom insoles that are made by basically taking a fairly flexible material that when you heat it up, it molds to your foot. And then once you let it cool down, even if you were to heat it up after that, it won't change its shape. So what it allows you to do is to get these custom insoles that, for a guy like me, make it a lot easier for me to walk and run, because it provides me with the high arch support that I need. So I will usually go out and buy a pair of sneakers that say cost, I don't know, $100. And many times I will spend an equal amount of money on custom insoles, because I've seen and I've felt the results. So I'm a big fan of the custom insoles. Now, I knew exactly where to get those in the United States, certainly in San Diego. But I don't know where to get that in Thailand, and I have a feeling it's going to be a lot more expensive over here to get that kind of specialty item. I actually have this concern, potentially a premeditated resentment. No, it's not that bad. But I have this thought that possibly the only way for me to get that is to go to a podiatrist and have it sort of made, custom made from a specialist. Which again, doctor's visits here are not expensive, but having to meet with a medical professional to then sort of prescribe me, if you will, custom insoles, yes, that might be more expensive. But I will also tell you that these custom insoles that I get, they last at least 2 years. And the amount of money that I save in chiropractic care is significant. If you saw that truck that went past me, basically that is the way that they sort of water things around here. So up there, you will see those blue little hoses. Basically, they're, fabric hoses, socks. And the truck drives up, and it fills itself up with water. Then it drives around here, and then it sprays water at probably 1,000 gallons per second out on the greenery. And that's how stuff gets watered here. There are indeed people that are hired to go out with hoses to water the plants, as they say. And those are pretty good Thai jobs, because the chances of you being let go are slim. Because Bangkok is a big fan of this park, which is good, because so am I. So there's always money allocated in the budget to basically take care of this park. So there will always be Thai jobs to take care of things like this, which I really like. There's an interesting, common phrase that I have heard about the reason things that I label as beautiful are in fact taken care of and beautiful here in the kingdom. And many times that statement will be, well, the king liked it. And they're referring to the now late king, King Bhumipol. And I tried to pronounce that as correctly as I can. Anyway, he was the longest reigning monarch. I would submit to you he was the most respected monarch by the Thai people, or by many people in the world, quite frankly. And I didn't really know the guy, meaning I didn't know of him or what he did, but I certainly heard the praise that he got from the Thai people long before he was even considered sick, and long before he passed away. And you want to talk about love for a leader. But getting back to sort of the way I lead, my interpretation, my view of the way that guy led, if you have ever heard the term servant leadership, that guy did that. He took care of the Thai people in a way that it was kind of like one of those deals where you could never repay him, sort of thing. And it wasn't like, well, I expect the government to employ law enforcement, so I'll be safe somewhere. It was more like, 20% of the entire country that farms rice needs to be able to have it hit market and for them to make a reasonable living. And so he made that happen, kind of thing. I don't know the specifics of it, but again, like I said, any Thai person, anyone, any single one that I would ever bring up the king to in the past, absolute love, absolute respect. So anyway, a lot of times when I'm somewhere and I express my appreciation for it or my like for it or something like that, or I label it as being enjoyable many times, even the local farang, but the Thais will respond, oh yeah, well the king liked that, so that's why it's well taken care of. And I think that's awesome. Now, I'm not totally clear on what this guy up here is doing. There's a part of me that thinks he's basically giving a report. It's a pretty beefy tripod. I've done enough of those to know that even with a dynamic microphone like he was holding with a pretty tight pattern, if I walk by talking in the infamous live my ass off indoor voice outdoors, he's gonna have to do it again. So hopefully I was quiet enough around him and didn't begin speaking again. So I believe this is sort of the intersection and entrance where that guy who was here a few days ago, I believe his channel is called Tom Yum Sisig, which I believe is a combo of basically, you know, Thai food and Filipino food. This, as far as I know, is the only one of these that's open in the park. It's the only one I found being here before. And it's also where I bought a Gatorade last time I was here. And again, what's really cool about this park is it's absolutely a park. While there is, you know, concrete and asphalt, right? So that you're not walking on dirt roads. There's plenty of green, man. And I think at some point I'm gonna go inland here from the sidewalk. And I'm gonna find a space to just sort of sit down and appreciate the fact that Thailand takes amazing care of their citizens as well as their parks. Because again, Mike, why are you living in Thailand? Isn't San Diego the best city in all of America? No, it's not. It's got a number of opportunities. Trust me. Unless you're incarcerated, I don't think anyone spends 20 years in the city just because it's adequate, or at least I wouldn't. And when it went from amazing to adequate, I moved. I'm gonna walk in here. What's interesting about this grass and this soil is it looks, you know, fairly wet. And when I came through here, or came past here a few days ago, I was walking on that sidewalk and I looked in and, you know, the grass is like soaking wet. So it seems like they really want to take care of this. Now again, you can see some brown in there, right? So maybe they're like, all right, well, this is the place that we've, you know, sadly, you got to neglect somewhere. So that turned brown, we got to make sure that turns green. Those people are over there on that sort of bridge. As you can see, there's a significant opportunity around for me to, well, the most important thing for me is to be somewhere where I can basically talk like I normally do with you guys, i.e. outdoor voice indoors, and not bother anybody. So I'm not going to cruise over there where that woman was doing qigong, and I'm not going to do a live stream there, but maybe around here I can find something. There seems to be a bench up there, and that was the path sort of way in the distance there that I just came from. So I think we'll continue to be, I'll continue to walk. But I think I'm certainly going to take a little bit of a break here. I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. I'll come back to you with some more of, well, one of the many, many reasons I love Thailand and some of the things that I think about when I'm walking around in Thailand. So it's Mike from livemyassoff.com saying I hope you're living the dream. Because if you're not living the dream, you just don't know it yet. Talk to you soon. Ciao.